episode 253, Medication Merry-Go-Round, Autism, Meds, and the Hardest Decisions We Make. Well, hey there, my friends. Welcome to the Not Your Average Autism Mom podcast. I am your host, Shannon Urquiola, and I am mom to an amazing young adult named Jordan. He's 29 now, and I've been walking this autism road for over 2 decades. I'm also a life and parent coach and mentor to an incredible private community of moms, all raising children on the spectrum. And I show up here every week for you because I know this journey isn't easy. I've lived the mix of love and fear and frustration and exhaustion that comes with it. This podcast is your place to breathe and learn. And whether your child was just diagnosed or you've been doing this a very long time, I'd want you to know that you belong here. And in this episode of our podcast, we're talking about something that's pretty heavy, something emotional, something that's deeply personal for me: medication. And before we talk about medications themselves, we have to talk about what this decision feels like, the emotional part for you, because I just think if we skip that part, nothing else makes sense. First of all, I just want to say no one wants their child to have to take medication. No one imagines this part of the journey. Medication decisions come with guilt and fear and second guessing and grief and hope and sometimes desperation all wrapped together. You know, I hear moms say things like, I swore I would never medicate my child. I feel like I'm failing. What if this changes who they are? What if I make the wrong decision? And then there's the outside noise, right? The opinions, the judgment, the unsolicited advice. So I want to say this clearly before I go any further. Medication is a family decision. Medication does not treat autism. Medication may help treat symptoms associated with autism or coexisting diagnoses. And no one else gets to decide for your child. No one else gets a vote. I worked with a mom once who told me, I was determined I would never medicate my child. I tried everything before. And she really did. She did therapy and visual schedules and supplements and diet changes, all of it. And one day she said something that stopped her in her tracks. She said, I realized I wasn't protecting my child anymore. I was protecting my fear. Her child wasn't sleeping. Anxiety was running their house. School mornings felt like bracing for impact. And medication didn't fix everything, but it lowered the volume enough that her child could access the supports that were already in place. And she told me that she had finally stopped waking up in survival mode. So that doesn't mean that medication is right for everyone. But sometimes the bravest decision isn't holding that line. It's being willing to try something that might just help. And trust me, this is a story that I hear all the time. And this is why I want to slow down for a second and clarify something really important, because medication gets misunderstood all the time. So I said a minute ago that medication doesn't treat autism, and I want to clarify what I mean by that. It treats symptoms and coexisting diagnoses, things like anxiety, ADHD, impulsivity, emotional dysregulation, irritability, sleep disorders, mood changes, and anxiety, which that's always been Jordan's biggest challenge. When Jordan was young, Prozac was life-changing. But it didn't come without downsides. It didn't erase the anxiety, but it made our life manageable. He could cope, he could regulate, he could function. But there was a downside. Jordan gained about 40 pounds, weight we are still 19 years later trying to shed. And last year, as we've been trying for years to get weight off of him, I made the decision to reduce his Prozac dosage by 20%. milligrams. So instead of 80 milligrams, he now takes 60. And again, Jordan's a hefty guy. And our doctor and I discussed it in great detail because she strongly believes that that's part of the reason, most of the reason that he can't lose weight because of the Prozac. But again, we know the benefits that we've had. So it wasn't an easy decision. But I can tell you so far, we're a year in and there's been no downsides. And that decision to lower his dosage came from years of observation, data. And that experience is exactly why I want to talk about this next. I want to talk about what happens when medications don't go the way that you expect them to, because that's part of this journey too. Sometimes medications will increase aggression, worsen anxiety, disrupt sleep, create emotional volatility, bring out tics. And when that happens, it's scary. I worked with a mom once whose child became more dysregulated after starting a medication, and she went into panic mode. She wanted to stop immediately. But because she was tracking the sleep and the behaviors and the appetite and the intensity, something became clear. Those behaviors were already there. The medication didn't cause them, it removed the suppression. So they adjusted the dose instead of just scrapping the whole plan. And weeks later, she said, "This is the first time my child feels reachable again." That's why knee-jerk reactions, either way, can get us into trouble. You know, stimulants are very common medications for our kids, and there is no one size fits all. Ritalin made Jordan extremely aggressive, hard stop, short lived. Clonidine helped tremendously with his impulsivity. Focalin was a game changer, and not for focus for him, but for irritability. And guess what? Then COVID hit and Focalin disappeared. And I'll never forget Dave telling the pharmacist, "If you don't get it in, we're going to have to leave Jordan here until you do." And of course, he was joking. Well, kind of. But at that time, we switched to Adderall, and he's been on Adderall ever since. And this brings me to another area where medication decisions can get really complicated. Sleep. Sleep was something that we chased for years. At one point, Jordan was on 300 milligrams of trazodone. Yes, he slept, but he slept so deeply that he started wetting the bed. And that's how we figured it out. He wasn't waking up because he couldn't wake up. You know, so many moms say, "I don't care how they sleep. I just need them to sleep." And I get that. Sleep matters, but quality matters more than quantity. I want to remind you of that. Grogginess, regulation getting worse, disconnection. Just know that more sleep isn't always better sleep. And this is where I want to slow things down for a minute, because sleep disruptions don't always show up the way that we expect them to. Sometimes it's not about falling asleep. It's never been about falling asleep for Jordan. Sometimes it's about what happens after our kids are already asleep. And I want to share something that came up inside our private membership this week, because I know so many of you are going to recognize yourselves in it. So one of our moms, Emily, shared about her son. He recently started taking guanfacine. And since the beginning, the medication, since they've been taking it, he's been having frequent middle of the night waking up, something that wasn't happening before. Not trouble falling asleep, no bedtime battles, but waking up in the middle of the night. And that distinction really matters. You know, she shared that he takes guanfacine twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, and the sleep disruption showed up after starting that medication. And she has a doctor's appointment coming up, and she did exactly what so many of us would do. She reached out to ask, "Has anyone else experienced this?" And that question alone tells me she's paying attention, and that matters. So let's talk about guanfacine. Guanfacine is a prescription medication many of you may be familiar and even have experience with. It is commonly prescribed for ADHD symptoms like impulsivity or hyperactivity, emotional regulation, anxiety, calming their nervous system, sometimes for tics or sleep related regulation. And it's often used with autistic kids because it can help regulate the nervous system. But what I'll tell you is the responses vary widely. And this is where families sometimes get tripped up. Because when we assume a medication should work one specific way, we can miss what it's actually telling us. A lot of families are told this medication can cause drowsiness. And yes, it can, but not all kids experience it that way. It's common, but it's not guaranteed. Some kids become calmer or more settled or sleepier. Others experience what we call paradoxical effects like increased alertness, restless sleep, irritability, emotional dysregulation. So, when we as parents think this should be helping with sleep, and instead we see middle of the night waking up, it can feel confusing and unsettling. But it doesn't mean that you're imagining things. And another thing is that medication isn't just about what your child takes, it's about when they take it. Some of our kids do best with morning doses. Some of them do nighttime doses. Some of us have to spread it out through the day. You know, Sometimes an evening dose can actually interfere with sleep cycles. And that's information. It's not failure. Timing matters just as much as the medication itself. And then another piece that often gets overlooked is the formulation. So, for example, there's immediate release guanfacine, and there's other extended release versions like Intuitive. And many other medications that your child might take are also available in extended release. Jordan's Adderall is extended release. And extended release medications stay in their body longer, which can change when side effects show up, right? Because they're releasing throughout the day. They can impact nighttime sleep cycles. They can affect how alert or how restless a child feels during different times of the day. Sometimes a medication that seems right on paper might just need a formulation adjustment, not a complete stop. And here's something I really want you to understand too. A dose that looks low on paper might still be too much for your child. Autistic nervous systems can be incredibly sensitive. Small changes can have crazy effects. And this is exactly why guessing isn't enough when you're navigating medication. That's why tracking patterns matters more than reacting to just one hard night. And Emily is doing exactly what helps providers make better decisions. She's tracking things like what time medication is given, what time he's waking up during the night, his sleep duration, the quality of his sleep, his energy the next day, his mood and regulation, appetite changes. That kind of information, when you track it, is gold for an appointment with your physician. Patterns tell a story. Single moments don't. You know, Jordan still takes guanfacine, 2 milligrams. And most of you know, like I said, he's a big guy. Guanfacine is given to Jordan for his impulsivity. He has taken it at night, he's taken it in the morning, and for him, it does cause drowsiness. Same medication, very different response. So, if you're questioning sleep changes, timing, dosage, formulation, you are not overreacting. You are being a responsible parent. Medication decisions are rarely about one variable. They they're about what, when, how often, how much, which version, and how your child's nervous system responds. There's no one size fits all approach here. And paying attention, asking questions, tracking patterns, and advocating, that is not fear. That's good parenting. So just remember, data is everything. Track sleep quality, sleep quantity, appetite, mood and regulation, tics, anxiety, aggression, their bowel habits, energy levels. Because when you don't track, your brain fills in the gaps. You blame the medication for things that were already happening. That's what we call all or nothing thinking. And it's never helpful, especially when it comes to the importance of your children and medication. You know, I've worked with moms who felt like a medication failed tremendously, right? But it taught them something. It ruled things out. It redirected the conversation. It led to a better fit. A failed medication doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you gathered data. And this right here is why memory alone isn't enough when you're navigating medication. Because when you're exhausted, you're emotional, you're living it day after day, it's almost impossible to remember exactly when things changed or what changed first. And this is where data becomes your best support, not your enemy. And for our private members, I created a medication tracking printable for you. It's available for you to download in the village. And this is something that I wish that I had years ago. It helps you track sleep and mood and appetite and anxiety and behaviors and side effects and dosage changes. Because when emotions are high, your memory gets fuzzy. Data helps you tell the whole story, not just the hardest moment. It helps you walk into those appointments feeling confident instead of overwhelmed. And it helps prevent us from blaming medication for things that were already happening or missing patterns that we really need to see. So, our members, you can find that in the village files, and I encourage you to use it anytime you're starting a new medication or you're adjusting a dosage. And this isn't about being perfect, it's about being informed. So many moms have told me that they feel like they have to justify their decision to everyone. You do not. I am here to tell you that your child doesn't need you to justify your decisions about medication or anything else you do. They need your confidence. Medication or not, confidence in your decisions along this autism parenting journey matter. And before I close, I want to invite you to something that supports you, not your child, but you. On January 31st, I'm hosting a live public workshop designed for you. It's designed to help you reset and refocus and reconnect with yourself and this parenting journey that you never planned. This workshop is about getting out of survival mode, reconnecting to you, learning how to navigate hard decisions without guilt, and setting up 2026 in a way that feels sustainable, not overwhelming. And it's only $14.95. And I did that on purpose because I did not want the cost to be the reason that you don't say yes to yourself. You always put everyone above you. And this is something for you that I will really hope that you'll say yes to. And if you're a member, it's included at no charge. And the link to all the information is in the show notes and on our social pages as well. And I'll just say, if you've been feeling stuck, exhausted, disconnected, not sure if you can do this journey, this workshop is for you. And I want to leave you with this. Medication journeys are rarely linear. They change as our kids grow. They change as needs change. And there is no shame in choosing medication and no shame in choosing not to medicate. Trust yourself and your decisions, mama. You are making the best decisions based on what you know right now. And that is enough. I want you to know that every week I'm here showing up for you because I know how hard this parenting journey is. And listen, if you want deeper support, coaching from me, connection with moms who truly get it, I invite you to check out our private membership. And lastly, please, if this episode helped you feel less alone or gave you a sense of relief, please share it. And also, if you haven't yet, leave a review because your reviews matter. All right, my friend, until next week, have a great week ahead. And above all, remember, you, mama, are doing amazing at this mom thing.